This is episode 2 of Strong Uncut podcast, aka the VIPCO podcast. I'm co-host James Simpson, author of upcoming VIPCO book, Video Nasty Mayhem, and I'm joined by
Jason Impey, indie filmmaker that made the VIPCO Untold Story documentary. And what are we talking about this week?
It's zombie flesh eaters.
In the city of New York,
What the hell's going on?
something strange is happening. Something not quite human. Something unspeakably evil. Something dead. If you loved Dawn of the Dead, you'll just eat up zombie.
It's my favourite zombie film of all time, that is.
It's the video, the film that put VIPCO on the map.
It definitely is. It was their first horror release, first big title they had, and caused big controversy. Michael, he ended up becoming the spokesman for zombie flesh eaters in the UK throughout the censorship battle and the Video Nasty era. And when you say zombie flesh eaters in this country, I think most people do think of VIPCO. I certainly do.
I think of the big manky green hand as well.
Zombie Flesh Eaters was really one of my introductions to VIPCO. I actually got the re-released cinema cut on VHS from Britannia Video Club, and I treasure that video. That's what kind of really started my love for Italian zombie and cannibal films and for VIPCO itself. So it was my ticket into the door for collecting VIPCO. Actually, that film.
Not going into too much detail because my book covers this extensively, so if you want to hear more, buy the book. And Jason's documentary covers it more as well, so if you want to hear more about that as well, look out for Jason's documentary. But VIPCO actually got the rights for zombie flesh eaters because, believe it or not, Mike Lee used to go to school with a guy called Martin Myers. His dad is the original Michael Myers, and he at the time ran a film company, didn't know much about VHS, and agreed to sell zombie flesh eaters to Mike Lee at a flat rate, and then Michael took that video and made himself a millionaire from it.
He released a cut version, and then for £10 more you could get the strong uncut version, which he sold bucket loads of, and everyone wanted the strong uncut version. And he told me it was $19.99 for the cut and $29.99 for the uncut. And so he sold by the bucket loads and definitely made him his first massive pot of cash running VIPCO.
Mike claims he loves zombie flesh eaters, especially the Splinters of the Ice scene. But Mike, as Jason and I know, Mike wasn't really a horror fan. He just liked the money that it brought him. When you spoke to Mike about this film, did you think he was a fan of it, or did he tell you anything that you don't know?
He likes zombie films, actually. He has fun with them, and he does love zombie flesh eaters because it made him money, but he generally has a little bit of a soft spot for this film. This is one of the rare films he released that he does actually quite like.
Mike claims he loves zombie flesh eaters, and that's probably why he also released several more Fulci films throughout the VIPCO career.
Zombie Flesh Eaters was such a seller for him. He even renamed 2 more films in his catalogue, Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 and 3, just to catch him.
Yes, Jason, you're right. Zombie 3, that was renamed Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 by Mike, Passion Attempt. And then Zombie 4, or After Death as it's also known, that was renamed Zombie Flesh Eaters 3. But Mike only did those films in the early noughties after he failed to keep the rights to zombie flesh eaters, and I think he did that in an attempt, obviously not only to cash in on zombie flesh eaters, but to compensate for the fact that he let his golden goose get away, as it were. Yeah,
I bet he kicks himself for losing the DVD rights. I mean, it's actually, a lot of people think he released zombie flesh eaters on DVD, and because of the artwork was so similar and it had strong uncut and all this stuff. When I speak to people, they really do think Zombie Flesh Eaters is a VIPCO DVD, but it's not. He only released it on VHS and had the VHS rights. So I'm sure he kicks himself for that balls up, really.
Yeah, I've seen that DVD release. It's quite cheap on eBay if you see it, but it does look exactly like it's a VIPCO release, especially with the artwork and the slapped on stickers saying banned includes excluded material or that the other. So it's a bit ironic that this company got Zombie Flesh Eaters, made it look like a VIPCO release, and then VIPCO got other zombie titles and tried to make them look like Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 case that they released, VIPCO releases, is like nearly identical. Really.
It's got the classic tagline, "The hand returns."
Yes, a bit of a popular amongst people.
By the way, the hand doesn't appear in either film. I think it's just based on the artwork that Michael Myers had commissioned for the film before Mike got onto it with VHS. Zombie Flesh Eaters 2, the artwork was pretty much identical, apart from a tagline, "The hand returns." But Mike Lee made himself a millionaire with Zombie Flesh Eaters. That's how much of a cash cow that film was in the 80s, at the height of the video nasties. Even when the film was censored, Mike still sold it cut and still made a lot of money from it.
A treasure, that is, a VIPCO treasure.
Well, I've recently been on eBay just to see how much my original VIPCO pre-cert VHS would sell for. And someone's selling theirs on there in a terrible condition compared to mine. They're selling it for £90. Having the original VIPCO VHS X-Rental Big Box pre-cert edition is like the holy grail of having a VIPCO VHS in your collection.
It is, yeah. I do have one. I have got the Rise and Fall as well, and I've also got Driller Killer.
Mike got hold of this film via his friendship with Martin Myers. Martin Myers has gone on to do a lot in film himself. Still is going. I believe his son's an actor now. So that's the 5th generation of the Myers family. And I believe Martin's father, obviously Michael Myers, in the film industry and distribution, and I think his father, Martin Myers' grandfather, was involved in the early cinemas in the southeast of England. But Mike Lee used to go to school with Martin Myers. I think they lived in the same street. Sort of kept contact throughout adult life. And Mike Lee wanted to set up VIPCO on the straight and narrow. His first 4 titles were from the original Michael Myers, because John Carpenter did name Michael Myers and Halloween after Michael Myers, the father of Mike Lee's mate. So 4 films were given to Mike Lee. Didn't sell so good, did average. Then Mike Lee, realising that red turns green when it comes to horror, red turns into money green, Mike Lee went up to Mr. Myers Sr. and asked if he could have a horror movie. Did he have any of his books that he wouldn't mind putting onto VHS? And it was Zombie Flesh Eaters. Throughout the early 80s, those who were around in the early 80s and remember this will probably recall the poster for Zombie Flesh Eaters being in news footage and newspaper articles for the Moral Crusaders of England campaign against video nasties. And Jason and me were the same age, but we both remember hearing about the video nasties, the aftermath, even though it's probably several years afterwards. And we've grown up fascinated with video nasties, and I think one of the reasons why video nasties is still fascinating all these decades later is because of films like Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Yes, no, definitely. Zombie Flesh Eaters, as I say, it got me into VIPCO, but also did get me into the nasties as well. It was an entry film for a lot of things for me, like zombie films, video nasties, VIPCO, and an inspiration for me to actually go on and make my own zombie films. When I made my first zombie film, Zombie Village, which was it was my first big zombie film, the second zombie film I've embarked on, and that is the one I sent to Michael, who probably did, looking back, contact me because I found out he does like zombie films. He has a soft spot for them, and he did put quite a few zombie films out in the end, including your favourite Zombie Nosh. So when I did my film Zombie Village, that was the kind of inspiration I was drawing from Zombie Flesh Eaters, because it was such a landmark. And as I say, it's interesting because most UK is really the only country that knows it for Zombie Flesh Eaters. When I went to the States in 2000, before I was in a DVD shop picking up loads of DVDs to bring back. They had Zombie in there, just obviously that Zombie 2, the title Zombie 2, and I was picking loads of films up, and he came over to me and could see that I had like Eaten Alive and House by the Edge of the Park, all these classics, Uncut. And he goes, "Oh, we've got a Zombie 2," and I went, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, "Oh, you know it," because he could tell I was English. He goes, "You know it's Zombie Flesh Eaters, don't you?" So I was quite surprised he knew that. But I know most people. It's only a UK thing. It's known as Zombie Flesh Eaters. Most people know it as Zombie 2. So it's another. Well, but saying that, I did ask Michael about that. That is the one title change he wasn't responsible for originally. He was sold that film as Zombie Flesh Eaters. He said it was Michael Myers that gave it that title, which he really liked and stuck with, and thought it did really well for being called that. So it's probably one of the only crazy title changes Michael didn't do.
If you think about it, it's a sort of title that doesn't make sense, because Zombie Flesh Eaters implies that the zombies' flesh will be eaten and not the zombies eating other people's flesh. That makes sense. Again, it's probably going back to the whole, we mentioned this on the first episode, I believe, the whole zombie dead thing. Well, the zombies are already dead, so what does a zombie dead mean? But zombie flesh eaters, I guess it's just basically saying they're flesh eaters and the zombies. But the film was such a landmark for VIPCO, and I, for all the goodwill in the world that I have for Mike Lee, because in doing this book, I've learned he's a great person and misunderstood. But for all the goodwill in the world, I think if it wasn't for Zombie Flesh Eaters, we wouldn't be having this conversation about him or VIPCO. I don't think people would remember VIPCO outside of the late 70s.
No, you're right. That film definitely gave him the oomph to carry on with the whole horror genre and release, or what he ended up releasing, and Driller Kill and all that came following that, really. He definitely got a taste of what it was like releasing a horror film with that, and he loved it, and gave a lot to the great British public for it.
Mark Morris, who's contributed to my book, Video Nasty Mayhem, and I asked him, candidly, what's your opinion of VIPCO? What's your final thoughts on VIPCO? He said that he just thinks Michael Lee and VIPCO got lucky when he talked somebody into giving him the rights for Zombie Flesh Eaters. I don't think VIPCO should be just remembered for Zombie Flesh Eaters, but I think if you need to pinpoint the pinnacle of VIPCO, it would be Zombie Flesh Eaters. But I think it's safe to say, when a lot of people do talk about VIPCO, that the go-to film is Zombie Flesh Eaters. And you said there, for you, Zombie Flesh Eaters was an entry film for VIPCO, and it was the same for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's three titles that come to mind four. There's four films that, if you say VIPCO, but the four films that make me think of VIPCO is Zombie Flesh Eaters, Driller Killer, Shogun Assassin, and The Bogeyman. They're the four films that I really make me think of VIPCO.
And those are the four films that are, decades later, getting various re-releases on DVD and Blu-ray by massive companies today in England, not just the United Kingdom, but the whole world. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head. Those four films are essentially VIPCO. Personally for me, when it comes to VIPCO titles that just stand out to me from that era, it's The Boogeyman. Zombie Flesh Eaters, it's a great film in its own right, and some say it's the greatest film of its director, Fulci. I'm not of the opinion that it's his greatest film. I don't know. I mean, do you think Zombie Flesh Eaters is Fulci's greatest film?
I think it's one of his best. It holds up well today. I think it's got an amazing opening with the ship coming into the New York harbour, and a topless woman in a G-string getting attacked by a zombie in the ocean, then a shark coming along. It's just priceless. I mean, that flabbergasts me still to this day, that scene. And I think Michael was taken back by that scene. It's never been mimicked, or it's never been rivaled ever since, and I don't think it ever will be, because they'll slap CGI over it these days. That's ridiculous, that scene. It blew me away, and it still continues to. And then after seeing the cut version, seeing it in its uncut glory with the eyeball scene and the splinter, I mean, that's still, that hurts. I mean, when I was doing film studies, they said, people use eye stuff to hurt the audience, because you're using your eyes to view a film. So when you hurt someone's eyes, it makes you squirm. You're taking that away. So it's quite a powerful thing to do in the art of film, is an eyeball scene, which Fulci did in The Beyond as well, which is another great film. That's my second favourite zombie film. It comes close to Flesh Eaters, but anything with an eye. I've got a phobia myself with my eyes being touched, so well. The effects are great, and it's so slowly done. It's not even like a quick cut. You stay with that woman screaming for ages and slowly getting impaled by the splinters. It sticks with you. That it's definitely a strong film, and I think it's a film that, when people see for the first time, you don't forget it. It's not a forgettable film. Just those two scenes alone, like a zombie shark with a naked woman and an eyeball scene like that. Those two scenes alone just stay with you forever, even if you remember nothing else. So it's a memorable film, definitely, and stands out amongst the Nasties and VIPCO's catalogue.
Well, I mean, you've probably heard of the expression "jumping the shark," but I think "jumping the shark" should be renamed "fighting the shark," perhaps, because you said there, like, nothing can top that, or nothing has topped that in the sense of horror films. I mean, there's some pretty mad moments in horror films, but at that time, or when you first see zombie flesh eaters and you see the zombie fighting the shark, I mean, it's like, what were they taking? What were they smoking when they thought of that in the script?
The film's an all-round winner to me. I love gore films, and I mean, that is full of gore, and I like practical effects, and that was made in the right era where it was all practical effects, and every effect is great, and the ending's just mad when they're hitting around their head with shovels and blowing their heads, like, smacking them on the back of the head and smashing their heads open, and I love zombies rising from the ground slowly like they do in that film. They come out of the earth like real slow and all very intimidating. The throat rip out scene still looks good, even in its restoration and transfers they've done. It still holds up. I was recently watching a bit of it again, and when they smash the zombie's head in with a crucifix, that looks really good still. I mean, it's really strong stuff. I can see why people were a bit funny with it. I can see why it flagged up on the Nasties. I can see the censorship issues. I'm not a big fan of censorship, but I can see why it got attention drawn to itself. And obviously being called zombie flesh eaters in the marketing that went behind it didn't help it. It made it stand out. Not quite as bad as Driller Killer's marketing, but it's definitely going to get attention being called zombie flesh eaters and having a hound coming out of a grave and stuff like that.
Mike, you said Mike seemed quite pleased to talk about a cut version of the film on tape, and he also saw the uncut cinema version. This is before the Video Recordings Act 84, but the VHS was actually cut, not by Mike's choice, from the cinema version of the film that he actually saw when he decided to take the film off Michael Myers' hands. And you said there, Mike, very shrewdly as a businessman, realised, I'll sell the cut version at a lesser price, but people in the know will go to their local video shop and they'll ask the bloke at the counter, have you got anything a bit stronger? And they'll give them, for an extra £5 or £10, the uncut version of Zombie Flesh Eaters.
Yeah, back in the day when he did do Zombie Flesh Eaters, the rating system existed for cinema only, really. Like I said, video was in lawless land, but cinema did have a bit of censorship, so they did pre-cut Flesh Eaters to get it into the cinema, and there was a few little snippets, but the main noticeable thing was the eyeball scene was gone from the cinema version, and there was a little bit of gut munching gone, and so that version's still good, but that eyeball scene makes it so much more memorable. But when the problem is with the BVFC is because Zombie Flesh Eaters was one of the 39 DPP films and it was prosecuted, there was a law that for years afterwards, even if they felt like the film could be released uncut, they had to still cut something because it was actually prosecuted, and it had like a 25-year period where they can't be seen to be releasing it. So this happened to a few of Michael's films. House by the Cemetery, when it was released with VIPCO on DVD on their screen time, they actually agreed that it could be uncut now, but because it had been prosecuted, they actually legally couldn't release it uncut. So they snipped a little bit, very few seconds out of a wound with blood gushing out, and they did it with Zombie Flesh Eaters as well. There was a bit where they come into the house and there's the woman's on the table being eaten, where they trim that a little bit. They felt like they didn't need to, but they had to be seen to cut something. So that's why on DVD it's got the extreme version and more gore than allowed before and all that stuff. But it was only until Arrow released it over here on Blu-ray, full uncut version, which we finally got after many years of waiting.
I can't remember last time I watched the film on VHS. But I've still got them in my collection, and I don't think I'd part with the pre-cert VHS of Zombie Flesh Eaters.
No,
which
that's
has
like an antique.
Which has got the strong uncut version sticker on it, which is where we've got our name from for the podcast. And I think actually that mentioning that Zombie Flesh Eaters with the strong uncut sticker started a trend for Michael that he probably realised putting these big eye-catching stickers on saying uncut and strangely strong uncut would attract people even more to the films. Well, by the early 90s, even though VIPCO was selling many of these former nasty titles cut, he was still putting on all these strong uncut stickers or, previously banned stickers, which drew people in. It's a marketing tactic that worked for Mike.
When I was collecting VIPCO, which, when I was getting a DVD catalogue, I loved it if it was uncut. I remember the Beyond was uncut, that had that on the case, made a big deal about that was the uncut version, so I was well excited about that. City of the Living Dead was uncut. There were, I know a lot of people say they're butchered films. He had a few uncut, to be fair to him. A few did come out uncut, which were the only way of getting it in the UK. It was overshadowed by the mega cuts to some of the other films, such as House on the Edge of the Park, which was probably the most cut film in history, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the cuts from that film, like the cuts start almost straight away, and that's the opening scene when the woman's forced into a car and raped, if memory serves me correct. Yeah, and the version I have on DVD, that scene just it cuts to something different. He gets in the car and it cuts, so you have no idea what happens to her, but if you've seen the film uncut, then you know what happens. But some of VIPCO's titles were heavily cut. But Zombie Flesh Eaters sort of goaded people with the fact it was uncut, which probably didn't help when the Video Nasty scandal came to a head. And Mike was being raided for selling, I think it was supposedly he was selling an uncut version of Shogun Assassin, or that might have been Barry Gold, which was the company that provided Mike with the tapes.
All the stock of Shogun Assassin was taken, but they got that back actually. But yeah, they did take all the stock for that.
Mike was so used to being raided, he was on first name terms with the...
Detective Peter Kruger.
Yes, I know his name, but I can't remember his job title. Mike was on first name terms with the, let's say, representative of the law that was there, Peter Kruger. And Mike took a lot of pleasure in just saying to Peter, go in there, do what you have to do, mate.
What a name to have, for that.
Well, and this was before the Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously, wasn't it? So I'm assuming if these raids happened when Elm Street was out, Mike might have deliberately called him Freddy by mistake.
It's an iconic name to have when you're raiding Video Nasties.
Yeah, Zombie Flesh Eaters, it did great, and then Mike Lee started to try to trade in on the glories of the Video Nasties come the early 90s when he tried to relaunch the firm. I think he put out two versions of Zombie Flesh Eaters. One's got the red film on the box, and then there's one that's black, and I think that's it was released on widescreen. I'm assuming you've seen both versions, Jason.
Yes, this is when a widescreen video first became a thing. It was like a big deal seeing the film in its cinema aspect ratio.
Yeah, Mike, when it comes to DVD, Mike did drop the ball, I'd have to say. I don't know quite how, considering how Video Nasties, and especially that one, Zombie Flesh Eaters, it did him so well for so long. And he claims he was too busy to renew the rights for Zombie Flesh Eaters for DVD. That's what I've heard from Mike. You said that you really raved about Zombie Flesh Eaters. Do you have any idea when he last saw that film?
I don't think he's seen it since probably the 80s, to be honest with you. Yeah,
since it made him a millionaire at the age of 27.
Yeah.
She mentions a lot, by the way.
He didn't visit his films a lot. As I say, he didn't like many of them, and he definitely didn't watch many of them.
Well, because just an idea. For those who don't know, Michael Lee's currently in a nursing home. He's recovering from a very long spell of ill health. I think it would be nice, Jason, if we go on a road trip and with a Blu-ray player and a Blu-ray copy of Zombie Flesh Eaters uncut, and get Michael to watch that. Just an idea, of course. It'd be interesting to see Mike's reaction to Zombie Flesh Eaters, because I agree with you. I don't think he's seen it since the 80s. And as you mentioned to me before, when you first caught up with Mike a few years ago, and you mentioned some of these VIPCO titles, and that they've been released since on DVD and Blu-ray, Mike told you that he had no idea these films still existed, and he thought people would have forgot about them.
Yeah, his attitude is he looks at all these old films and just, they're crap now, and there's so much more out there. But he's definitely he doesn't understand the massive audience that they've got and the cult following that they've gathered over the years.
I've seen an advanced version of The Untold Story, and Mike in it comes across as obviously a nice guy, and when he's talking about VIPCO, you can tell he's quite shocked that people still speak fondly of it. He's probably forgotten about it the moment it stopped making him money. But what are your opinions of Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 and 3?
So, Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 shocked me a bit when I first saw it, because I wasn't ready for that kind of film. It's definitely not on par with the original. However, it's a really fun, crazy film in its own right. If you're in the right mood for it, it's a great popcorn flick. I just find it, it's like Power Rangers on ecstasy. That's how I describe Flesh Eaters 3 is the worst of them all. But again, it's a fun little film. It goes off on a bit of a tangent. It reminded me more of Demons than the Zombie Flesh Eaters film. But, it was getting later down the line that the Italians were making those, and then it had a bit of a shift and change. But
Zombie Flesh Eaters 3, the only real link to the prior film is that they were both filmed in the Philippines, and Claudio Fragasso was the director.
I've definitely got a soft spot for Zombie Flesh Eaters 2, though. There's a few scenes in that are just genius.
Well, it's some people say it's a bastardised Fulci film because the backstory to this film is that Fulci was the director, and then he pulled out halfway through claiming an illness, but his friend and co-writer Claudio Fragasso took over directing duties, and Fulci wasn't pleased with the end result. And in case you don't know who Claudio Fragasso is, he was the director of the notorious Troll 2. I'll be honest, I can't remember much of Zombie Flesh Eaters 2, but Zombie Flesh Eaters 3, I think that's one of the worst films I've seen. And my highlight of that movie, for all the wrong reasons, is a scene where there's two characters, they're in a darkened room, they're scared the zombies are going to get them. And they light a candle to light up the room, and it turns out, after all, there's a group of zombies stood right in front of them, and they shit themselves. And I'm thinking, you needed to light a candle to see that there's about 4 zombies stood 2 feet away from you.
Well, I've got my VIPCO DVDs of both of those, but I also do have the 88 films Blu-ray releases of them as well, actually. So I'll check out the new transfers.
You'll have to tell me what celluloid shite looks like in HD then. I don't know what the listener, if there's one listener, or listeners, if there's more than one, think of Zombie Flesh Eaters. Do you agree that it probably is the essential VIPCO movie, or if not, to let us know online if you think there's a better VIPCO film out there that represents the firm. I'm on Twitter. The handle's @VIPCOBook. Jason, what's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as Jason Impey, so if you want to drop me a line regarding any VIPCO titles, or the Zombie Flesh Eaters trilogy that VIPCO put out, I'd be interested, because I said I'm a massive fan of the first one, soft spot for the second one, third one I could take or leave, but it's still fun, still good to have in the collection. It's not the worst VIPCO film out there, trust me, that he's put out worse than that.
Well, you see, I don't know, there might be. I think Zombie Nosh is a terrible film, but you said the other week you quite enjoyed that.
I love Zombie Nosh. I love that film. That holds a soft spot, and I know it's Zombie Nosh. I know it's Flesh Eater, but to me it'll always be Zombie Nosh.
Yeah, but just anyone listening, I mentioned in the last podcast the VIPCO book is up for pre-order. Since then, the physical books have arrived. I've got several copies. Not many people in my family have any idea what VIPCO is, so they're not that fussed, but they've had a look through the book. And I felt like I needed to mention this because Jason might think it's funny. My 65-year-old dad came over today. He was looking through the book. He was just flicking through it, and for some reason he decided to read the review in the book for Violence in a Woman's Prison. Especially when he's seen that it's also known as Emmanuel in Hell. So that tells you where my dad's priorities are at. But there's one bit in the book where I mention the violence, obviously, that happens in the film, and there's one scene in particular where I don't know if Jason remembers this in Violence in a Woman's Prison, but there's a scene where a woman who's sick of being sexually abused, she gets a cork, wedges a razor blade into the cork and puts it up her vagina. So when the man rapes her, he gets a nasty shock. Do you remember that scene, Jason, by any chance?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my dad's reading the Violence in a Woman's Prison review, and he's just reading it quietly, and then he reads that bit out loud in front of everyone that was in my living room at that time and starts laughing. So my 65-year-old father knows that I've watched a film where a woman sticks a cork with a razor blade up her zombie nosh.
Yeah, you see, I wonder if that was an influence for the film Storm Warning, because there's an Australian film called Storm Warning, which it's fairly recent. It's a noughties film, and there's a similar scene where a woman knows she's about to be raped, and she gets the top of a can and makes it into a sharp object and shoves that up herself, ready for the guy to get a nice surprise. So it's a bit of a similar scene there. So I dare say there's some inspiration from that.
And VIPCO, again, spreads out far and wide across the world of cinema in more ways than one.
Thanks for listening. As I said, if you want to drop a line, I'm Jason Impey at Twitter, and there is a VIPCO Untold Story Facebook page you can reach me on, and you're on Twitter yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, simply at VIPCO Book. Or if you want to go on Amazon, just type in VIPCO Book on the top result, and you'll see on Amazon my book is Video Nasty Mayhem. Well, thanks for listening. Bye from me. And is it bye from you, Jason?
Yeah, bye from me until next time.